The jungle was a prime example of I've still got healing to do. I'd just been crowned king. I was on an absolute high, had the crown on still, and I just burst out into tears.
So for people that didn't see you talking in the jungle, what are you healing from?
King of the jungle is Danny!
If I'm in a good place, I can enjoy all that. Success to me is like a real life certificate of how well you're doing. But when you're hurt, when you're traumatized, all of that is the worst place to be.
Why was it so difficult for you?
Just started the band and my dad left. He left us. Financially, I had to take my mum's house for her and put my sister through university, and I'm having these night terrors. And I didn't know how to cope with it all. I had the highest point in my life so early on, so young, but then the lowest point.
Is the answer just to pick up the phone to your dad? This episode is supported by Huel. Well, Danny, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
First
Amazing
conversation you've had since you left the jungle.
It is.
And
yeah.
of all the things that you did in there, the conversation that you had about anxiety, about the challenges from your parents' divorce, about opening up to some of your other campmates, it seems like it really resonated with the public. Why did you choose now to talk?
I've actually mentioned it a few times before, but it's never had that real impact. And I think an environment like that, I did not think I would ever talk about it like that ever again. I thought I was done with it. But when you get asked those questions in an atmosphere like that, I feel like there's only a base level that we talk about in everyday life. I'll go for a beer with my mate and it'd be like, so how are you, mate? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. But there's never that level that, like the jungle and that space of having no distractions in the middle of nowhere. You talk to people and you get to know people deeply and quickly. But then they ask the questions and then you answer them and then you find that you're going deeper, like this podcast will probably do today, but you don't get this time in everyday life. There's so many distractions and things going on. So I never thought I'd open up like that. Yeah. I genuinely didn't. But it was healing, and I've learned something about myself that I still need to heal, because that I clearly have something that is still hurting or something that's still there. And I thought I'm fine. I've been to therapy. Oh, good. I spoke to somebody. Cool. And I think that's what we do. But yeah, as men, we don't talk about it enough. And the jungle was a prime example of I've still got healing to do, you know.
So for people that didn't see you talking in the jungle, what are you healing from?
I think I'm healing from a lot of things. When I talk about it I've had various therapists for different reasons, but I'm trying to find another one now. It's that 16-year-old kid who was scarred by maybe a relationship at home. You know, for me, my parents are like your first idols, the people that you look up to, and it's the magic of a family. And, you know, getting in a band and coming back to a house that wasn't a home anymore, that had happy memories. I was healing from that, and that catches up with you. And that 16-year-old kid, he's always chasing me behind, you know. And I was put in a situation where financially I had to take my mum's house for her and put my sister through university, and I'm like, I'm not a dad yet. I'm 17 years old. You know, I've just got in a band. I should be enjoying it. I'm touring the world. But I had all of this, I had the highest point in my life so early on, so young, but then the lowest point. But I didn't really realize that it was my lowest point, because I didn't know what these feelings were. I didn't know what anxiety was. I just remember trying to deal with it in a way that I did, which was escaping the band and escaping the fun that I was having. I didn't want to go home and go to this dark place where my mum was in bits over this divorce. I didn't want to go there, you know, and I left it to my sister. And, you know, it's hard for anyone to go through. But seeing my mum like that, it wasn't very nice. And from what was such an amazing, what I thought was an amazing, perfect family home, to this destruction and, you know, cold, damp, dark house. Just didn't want to be there. So I was taking that everywhere with me. Yeah. And then suddenly this feeling became almost like a tornado, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it started affecting me in my work, in my social life. Couldn't go to football games. You know, I was in custom queues having anxiety attacks. I was doing interviews where they'd literally be counting down on TV. We're live in 3, 2. I'm like, I'm having that feeling again. Oh my God. Like, you know, I was literally above my body, feeling cold and sweaty and sick, and I didn't know where I was. And I just was out of balance mentally.
And what do you attribute the anxiety to?
Good question. Trauma from somewhere. I think that most of it is loss. Whether that's the loss of my dad, and then the next person I look up to was my granddad. I lost him. Then the next person was my nan. I lost her. Then my best mate more recently, I've lost him. So it's all loss. Yeah, I think it's loss.
Your dad's still around, but you don't have a relationship with him, right?
Yeah, don't have a relationship with him since I was, about 18, 19.
Right. And why was it? Because divorce is not uncommon, right? 42% of marriages end in divorce, which is an alarming and pretty sad statistic, right? But not everyone, the best part of 20 years later, is still seeking answers. Why was it so difficult for you?
I think because I sat down with him and I said, can you not just sort it out with mum?
Yeah.
Can you not just sort this out? Because normally you think about your kid should be your first thought. And I didn't feel like that with my dad. It was, he left us and you just abandoned and you're like, okay, cool. Like I idolized you and now you've just gone.
Did you ever tell him that?
I don't think so. But I think, I don't know, maybe I didn't. But he had some issues going on as well. I think that, it was when he got a new job and I wish I'd known what I know now to be able to go, Dad, talk to me. Let's talk about it. I was always scared of talking because talking in my house always ended up in conflict and fights. And I actually wrote a song about it on the first and second album about how I don't know why I just let these things slip by. Why am I so scared to talk about it? Why am I so scared of emotion? Because emotion in my house was a fight. That's what I didn't like about it. And I was just a peacemaker, and I shouldn't be that at 15, 16, 17, 18.
So what do you wish you'd have known then that you do know now?
Sounds ridiculous, but I wish I could have literally gone for a beer or a coffee with my dad and just gone, are you okay? What's going on? Tell me, are you upset at work? Because he'd always just escape down at the pub himself. Right. We'd be almost relieved that he left the house because he brought this energy home that he clearly wasn't happy. And I wish he'd have spoke. I wish he'd have talked about it. He had a marriage before that other stuff went on and I wish I'd talked to him about that and gone, how are you feeling about that? You've always had some trauma from somewhere else and you're carrying it and it's just gone into the next one. And unfortunately, me and my sister were the brunt of all of that. Yeah.
It's so interesting though, isn't it, that you're now in a place where you know that your dad wasn't behaving badly or acting like a dick for no reason or wanting to create conflict. Like you now realise he had a trauma that was unresolved as well.
I think he did, yeah. And I think that if he had spoken about it or if he'd have known how to talk about it, and I think I don't think I'm like my dad, but what I think maybe we do have the same is I don't understand my emotions sometimes and I think I'm still working on that. I don't know how I feel. I'm like, what is that feeling I'm feeling today? And maybe he felt like that. Maybe he was like, I don't know what I'm feeling today. All I know is the only way to escape it is go down where I'm in a happy place, which is the pub.
Yeah. Okay,
that's fine. But there comes a point where those emotions and what I've learned, it fills up like a bin, doesn't it? It's got to overflow and come out somewhere. Yep. I mean, I've had it in different feelings. If it's grieving, it's more night terrors and waking up at night. And then I remember waking up at night with night terrors when I'm producing and writing a One Direction song. And I was waking up and I had this moment of like, when my dad left, I was just started the band and my dad left. Then when my granddad died, I was having these night terrors, but I was producing and writing for the biggest band in the world. So I have these like weird coincidences in life that happen all the time. And I remember being freaked out that this job needed to be perfect and right because, we've written the song and it's great, but now I need to deliver it in a production way. But then I've lost somebody that was close to me and I'm having these night terrors and I didn't know how to cope with it all. It was so crazy.
Did you draw a line between having professional success and this personal suffering that you were going through?
What do you mean?
Well, did you, for some people, they can often think that it's almost some kind of karmic payback that I'm successful here. Yeah. I need to be paying the price somewhere else.
I never thought like that.
Right.
Mine was more like,
So Danny recently survived 3 weeks in the Australian jungle on beans and rice, and I will bet he'd have loved one of these, because this podcast is sponsored by Huel, the world's leading complete nutrition brand. And Huel is a perfectly balanced meal. Their ready-to-drink Black Edition, which I love. This one's chocolate flavour. It contains 26 vitamins and minerals, as well as 35 grams of protein. I love the taste. It leaves me feeling full for ages. It also means that if I need to grab a meal on the go, I can. And I know it's going to leave me satisfied with everything I need from a complete meal. So it saves me time, it saves me money, and it tastes great. If you'd like to get involved, I've got an offer for you. All you need to do is head to huel.com and use the code HP for 10% off and a free gift for new customers. That's the code HP at huel.com for 10% off and a free gift.
mine was more like, I tried to escape it in my success, and that wasn't the right thing. So I'd always try and escape it somewhere. But I've quickly learned that that wasn't the right thing.
Anxiety is such an interesting one, because when you talk to people about depression, they go, oh, right, you need to go and seek help. Or if you've got a broken leg or a physical issue, you go and see the doctor. Anxiety is very strange, isn't it? Because you almost can't explain to people what's going on, because it doesn't sound right. It just sounds like you're worrying. Do you know what I mean? I've been there myself.
It's so hard to
weird.
understand if you've never felt it.
Yeah.
It really is. But like you said, it's a very simple way I would describe it, is this: if you did break your wrist, where do you go? You go to the doctor, like you said. Then you get a cast on it. Maybe that's therapy. So trauma is a break, or whatever. That feeling of imbalance in the brain is kind of a break. Then you get a cast on it. But then you have to have physio to rebuild those muscles in your arm. So that for me is the therapy afterwards. And you have to keep going at it. Like, I think that I always have to work on burying that anxiety, burying it. Because like I said, that 16-year-old kid who is, hurt, he'll always be there. Like, it's the making of you. Not to 16, not to 19. It's the making of you. It's never going to go away. It's the most impactful moments of your life. So I just got to remember that. He'll always be chasing me, But keep him back there. Always be in front of him.
So what were some of the techniques that you learned in therapy that have been able to keep that dark shadow at bay?
Well, the very first therapist I ever saw was a guy called Ashley, and it was Tom that put me onto him. Luckily, I had these brothers that were, my bandmates that had been through similar things and could advise me a little bit. And he actually taught me how to breathe. Just breathe. And kind of, as cheesy as it sounds, just center yourself. What can you smell? What can you taste? And just breathe. And that really helps. But then what was weird about that, a couple of years later, that then became a trigger. So my wife would feel me like going, and it was literally not smooth. I'd be like this. That became a trigger then. And I had to stop doing that, which was weird, right? Because something that used to help me so much became something that, I think because I healed through that,
right?
Maybe when I went back to doing it, it brought a feeling of me back at that time.
And I think that the day that what was the name of the first therapist?
Ashley.
The day that you made that decision,
Yeah.
like, that's a really significant day in someone's life. So take us to the week or two before that moment. What was life like on a daily basis at that point?
It was bad butterflies in your tummy. It was tight chest. It was real tight throat. It was the kind of breathing that wasn't smooth. It was real jerky, and everything was what if. Like, here today, I would be thinking, what if there wasn't a toilet nearby, just in case I had an anxiety attack? I need to go and hide in the toilet. Yeah. I'd always find a hiding spot. I'd have a banana and a Coke in my bag just in case I had a sugar dip. I was thinking it was all that crazy stuff, And I found that comforting. So I got a banana in my bag and get the tube today, just in case I had that feeling. So it was this big question: what if that happened? What if I have that feeling again? Yeah. It was always, I became scared of that massive tornado of,
and all these safety behaviors that you've put in place as well.
Yeah, which when you over the years, and I think, without getting ahead of myself, in everything I do, my bar is set so high. So with healing, my bar's set, I want to heal straight away. Right. Whereas actually in healing, it's the small steps, which in everything, it's the small steps. I didn't learn guitar just like that. I learned it from playing since I was 6 years old, playing the worst riff ever, to then being 38 and still working on it. and ripping out 2 nights at the O2 Arena. It's just little steps over the years that you do. And I think it's the same with healing and same with dealing with, I was obviously hurt by something and traumatized and needed rebalance or reprogramming, should I say. I feel like that's the way to put it. I needed reprogramming, and that's what I did by going to speak to a professional. And I think that's what a lot of people put off, is that these guys are professional. You know, it's great talking to friends, it's great talking to your loved ones. Because my wife didn't understand why I had to go at first. She was like, why do you need to talk to somebody else? Why can't I help you? Right. But I needed that one professional, actually many professionals over my time, just to reprogram me. And podcasts helped me massively.
Is that right?
Massively.
Before we come on to that though, I'm interested in that, in your response to your wife asking that, because I can imagine that that's a big barrier for a lot of men, that you feel like people around you are not enough to help, and therefore you don't want to hurt them. So we prioritise their feelings above our own needs. Yeah. How did you respond to your wife when she said that?
I think listening to podcasts before, I realised that I needed help. And the podcasts, like people like Mel Robbins, you know.
Brilliant, yeah.
People like her, just it could take one sentence just to change your way of thinking. And it's so impactful. There was a lot of CEOs that had businesses that felt the same way as me. And I just related to these people over the years of listening to podcasts, and I found it so helpful. That's when I went to my wife and I was like, I think I need to go back to therapy, because I had the Ashley guy when I was 18, but then I feel like I needed it again. And I felt like, how many times can my wife hear me talk about this? And I didn't want it to get too much for her.
Right.
The other thing that I think is very difficult for a lot of people to comprehend when they're in the position that you're in, and you mentioned CEOs there, people would look at a CEO and go, well, why are you anxious? Why have you got mental health challenges? You're running a business that's massively successful, turning over a huge profit, looking after loads of stuff. People from the outside would go, are you joking me, Danny? You've dreamt your whole life to be in a band. No, you're in a band, you're in a successful band. You've had number ones, you were the youngest number one album, beating the Beatles to that number. You've stayed relevant for a long time. You've been on all these amazing TV shows. Everything you touch seems to be successful. Does the external success make the anxiety better or worse?
That's a great question. I think for me personally, that me makes all of that better. And what I mean by that is, if I'm in a good place, I can enjoy all that.
Yeah.
I love all of that. Success to me is like a real life certificate of how well you're doing. Great, let's do it. But when you've got hurt, when you're hurt, when you're traumatized, when you're going through something that you can't quite understand, all of that is the worst place to be. And it doesn't matter. None of that matters.
And is that even more confusing, that you're getting success and it's not helping?
Yeah. I remember being on stage and I was going through losing my granddad and going through this next trigger for anxiety. And I remember being on stage and I was like, it's the first time I've been on stage and I'm feeling completely numb. Like, this doesn't mean anything to me. And I knew then, I was like, oh my God. What does this mean? Because normally what I would think is, I need to go out there and put on a show. Like, people have got other shit going on that I need to go out there and make their life better. But actually, how can I do that when my life isn't right? I'm not right. But that's where music is beautiful, because I could go on there and I could really almost get too emotional. There's a song called The Heart Never Lies, and I was singing it for my nan that night. And I got too emotional in the song. So there's that as well. Obviously, I started going, like, I can't sing it because it's, you gotta.
Is that lovely acoustic song that you play?
No, which one's that? I've got there's a couple of them.
Lovely
Which one?
That you played when we were in Norwich.
Not Alone.
Oh,
yeah,
where everything just goes dark.
Yeah,
and
Not
quiet.
Alone.
Yeah.
That was when I was getting the train down on my own to Manchester and just going for it. Literally just going for it. And I was thinking, I was questioning. I got brought up Catholic, and I was questioning, what does all this mean? Blah blah blah. And what I believed in then, when I was going down to this, Tom Fletcher's house to write some songs that could potentially be successful, was, well, I believe in the universe is falling into place for me. Let's just go. Let's just go with it. And I wrote a song about it, and it was like, I'm not alone because this music, this is guiding me. I mean, I've gone off track a little bit here, but this is guiding me to. It's almost like sometimes people look and try and connect what's happening in front of them. Yeah. Whereas what I do is I go for it and don't try and connect it. Look back and go, oh yeah, that happened. Right. Well, that led me onto there. That led me onto here. That show I just did led me onto this podcast. What? You know, it's stuff like that. That's a way better way of looking at it for me.
I think it's so interesting. And I think the other thing that we need to talk about is that you can't remove the trauma from the success, right? There's a great quote by, in the book Iron John, Robert Bly writes, where a man's wound is where the genius will be. And I wonder whether you've had any conversations or some thought about the fact that some of these traumas that you've gone through have actually been part of the catalyst to success, part of the energy source.
Don't get me wrong. I have written some of the best songs when I'm hurt. Absolutely. And here's the thing about it is when you talk about something, other people relate and feel a little less lonely or feel connected with you. When you write a song for yourself or to one person, you speak to many. There's so many songs that we try and write and it's like, let's try and speak to the many. Whereas actually speaking to one person speaks to the many because we're all different, yeah, but that's what makes us the same.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we all connect through music. I think that's what's amazing about music. But for me, going through the music for me has always been the meditation, the kind of the constant in my life.
Yeah.
Obviously, having a family now, that's the next constant thing, and trying to learn from what my dad did, you know, put it into my family environment. So the trauma is, like you said, it is a catalyst for it. It makes you write stuff down. I actually wrote a solo album and it was almost a very therapeutic way of writing because I actually wrote about my dad and home and stuff like that. And I was suddenly like, I didn't realize I felt that way about that. But it was my way of just dealing with it, I suppose, or writing it down or getting it out there.
You remember some of the stuff you wrote that made you think, okay, that's all right.
I mean, some of them's out there. There was a song called "Is It Still Love?" and it was my mum. I was trying to get. I remember Springsteen saying something like, "I always try and write from the perspective of I put myself in the character's shoes, so it doesn't always have to be my perspective." Right. So I wrote it from my mum's perspective. Then there was this song that was called "Last Mistake," and that's actually never been released. I just wrote this song about the very first time I went home and I saw this house that used to be a home, and it was explaining how cold it felt and dark. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but you know, my dad used to do the little things like the DIY, and like the curtains were falling down or the shelf was hanging down. I was like, oh, my mum's here on her own. And I used to feel so much empathy. I used to feel guilty for having a good relationship because my mum didn't have one. Who's my mum cuddling at night? Like, I felt guilty for cuddling at night. It's like, my mum's not got anyone. And I had this massive, like, I wasn't living my life because I felt so much pain for my mum. Yeah. And it's ridiculous, but it's just the way I was.
It's not ridiculous at all. Why would it be ridiculous?
Because it was hurting me too much. And it was, you know, when anxiety hits, for me, it was like a computer list of all these questions and it's overwhelming. And suddenly I'm like, and then that's when the anxiety comes in because I've got so much going on or so many feelings that I don't understand that it has to come out somewhere. And, you know, I'm going to bed at night. Why should I feel guilty for having a beautiful relationship when my mum doesn't have one? I just felt like I was a little bit silly thinking, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just like everybody else.
But I think there's a really interesting pattern of what you described when you said about you were getting the train down from Manchester and going to Tom's house, and then you channeled that into a song that you could explain afterwards. You've said about sometimes you'd have the emotion and then you could understand why you'd had it later. I think there's something about just allowing yourself to feel and then being able to articulate it through. And
yeah,
song obviously helps you do that. Are there any other ways that you found that you can basically be able to process and understand these quite powerful emotions?
For me, it's about sitting down and giving time to it, to talk about it, because I don't write stuff down. The only time I write stuff down is when I'm writing. I don't know how I can write songs, to be honest, because I never write. I don't write. I was terrible at English at school. So I don't know how I can write, but I can. And I think it's because I can channel this is the thing, I can channel my emotions through music more than I can in everyday life. That's what's mad about it.
Well, it's not. I mean, we had James Blunt here that spoke about, he'd gone to public school, he was a boarder, where emotions were seen as a sign of weakness. And it was only later on that he learned to write really powerful music about his love for his own father and some of the experiences he had in war. But that was the only place he found was an outlet to say things that were unsayable in the world he occupied.
See, that's really interesting. Like, this is what I'm just thinking about now, is like being in a pop band, you only get those moments, maybe like when you're touring, like when you've seen us on tour and I get to play that acoustic song and we put it on an album. You don't get, a lot of it is escapism in the music we write. You know, like obviously I'll never be good enough for that girl. 5 colours in her hair. You know, this punk rock girl that we want to get with. It's all that, and it's all great. But how I grew up on music, I grew up on blues music and, you know, The Who, and then I got into Oasis and all that, and they're talking about real, and it's not that we don't talk about real stuff, we do, because that was our life. But it's only later on that now we're all starting to connect like with our emotions a bit more and being brave enough to write about it, because it is a scary thing. Yeah. You know, we felt protected by like playing these songs that were written about relationships that were kind of, you know, teen angsty, rather than feel anxious about me dad leaving. We don't, you know, but
you were kids. You have to be kind to yourself as well, don't you?
Yeah, of course you do. But now I think it's all right to write about that stuff now, and I think the music industry is way more accepting of it in the pop world.
So you seem in a really good place at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely things that I've learned about in the jungle that I need to just talk about.
What are they?
Understanding myself, understanding my emotions. I still don't do that because I think understanding my emotions will help me to communicate better, and I just need to work on that.
Human brain's mad, isn't it? I mean, you think this is how many years since your dad left your family?
21 years. Yeah.
Have you thought about the fact that after 21 years and lots of therapy and lots of time spent writing songs that have been really helpful and lots of professional success and some brilliant private success with your amazing kid and your beautiful wife, right? And you haven't yet found the answer necessarily. Is the answer just to pick up the phone to your dad?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't know him anymore. He doesn't know me. And I don't recognise his voice. I don't know him. Yeah, it's difficult. It's really difficult.
Have you grieved for him then?
I think so, yeah. Like, I think that's why I gravitate to like Bazza in the jungle. Bazza was one of them in the jungle. I felt like I had a dad in the jungle. It's like, he's got my back. Don't argue with me, because Bazza will have you, kind of thing, you know. Yeah. And then your best mate, that's why I loved the football so much. It was that kind of lad time. It was that thing like, you know, that you'd have with your dad. Going to the football, doing this, doing that. I do crave that to this day a lot. Yeah. But I try and find it in other outlets, you know.
See, I'm interested in this because there's a brilliant book, if you get a chance to read it, by an Australian psychologist called Steve Biddulph. That wrote a book called Manhood.
Okay.
And he talks about some of these challenges. But one of my favourite quotes in it is he said that boys who are denied appropriate physical affection and praise from their father or other males while they're growing up seem to then have difficulty forming male friendships. In fact, they have a huge distrust of other men. And yet you're telling us about the strength of these relationships that you can build with the bandmates, the people in the jungle. How have you broken that cycle then to be able to build these trusting relationships with other men?
Because I look back, I think it's because I look back and I have fond memories of my relationships with all these mentors that were men around me. Like, I had a great relationship with my dad. It's just, I find conflict really hard. I find confrontation quite hard. Maybe I'm to blame a little bit as well, of like, it's just easier blocking it out. I understand that. But there's also this, I suppose, relates more to my dad. is that I didn't choose to be born. He chose to have me. And I have this thing of like, I could never leave my son, and I'd be fighting to speak to him, but yet my dad isn't. And I just kind of like, okay, well, I just need to, if he isn't fighting for me, why should I bother, kind of thing. And maybe that's not right. But the reality of it is, I think it would bring more problems in my life if I had him back in my life. So I have to block it out, and I have to say, that's over.
But you described your childhood where you would try and smooth over conflict. You'd be like, let's have a good time.
Yeah.
Let's all go out and get on, rather than deal with the source of whatever the conflict was at that moment. And as somebody that's managed to break so many patterns of behaviour, it seems to me that you're still continuing that pattern of trying to either ignore it or block out conflict rather than go to the source of it and face that.
And that's probably another thing I need to talk about, because if I understood how I felt about something, I could go and speak to someone about it. Whereas I'm still scarred in approaching somebody with my feelings, because I've always had shutdown or conflicts, or I've only seen negative things happen from telling your feelings. And I'm still learning to this day. I mean, my wife's a good example. She's taught me that talking about stuff, it's good.
Yeah.
But it's not just talking about stuff, it's actually telling someone how you feel. You know, and there's a way to, no one can blame you for the way you feel. The way you act and the way you react, yeah. But if you feel a certain way, at least you can do something about it and go, I can help you, or I'm sorry you feel that way, or whatever it is. But I have only had overreaction throughout my whole life when I've ever said how I feel.
As you're describing it, you've spoken about your dad has left, and you've decided not to have this confrontation with him because it hurts too deeply. And I'm interested that you've been on the receiving end of people that love you being willing to lean into that discomfort to maintain the relationship, and yet it's not something you're willing to do for your own dad to try and understand what was going on for him.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point. It's a very good point. I mean, I have these realizations quite often when I speak to amazing people.
Do you ever feel too busy to prioritize your health? Well, look, I sometimes have times in my life where I feel like all the demands, from jobs to kids to travel, my health falls to the bottom of my to-do list. But I rely on Biotic by Heights. If you follow me on social media, you'll know that I absolutely take one of these every day, because I know I'm doing right by my gut health by just taking one single capsule. In fact, we were recently told on this show that performance isn't about where your peak is, it's about where your floor is. And with Biotic, I know I'm building a foundation for the rest of my health. The other thing I love about these is they're super convenient. You don't need to refrigerate them, so I can take them with me when I'm traveling. And if you're wondering how I feel, more energized, lighter, more focused, just by taking one of these every day. And trust me, I don't miss a day. So don't let a busy schedule or a busy life stop you from thriving. If you want to reach your heights this year, like all of the high performers that I interview, just go to heights.com/HP or enter the code HP20 at checkout, and you will get 20% off your first order. And as well as that, your gut will thank you.
Here's the thing. I said one time, I was like, I just kept saying, I just love a beer with my dad. I don't want to talk about, you know, on all the nonsense that went on, how you felt about mum, because he did do that. He used to sit me down and be like, your mum's doing me head. I was like, mate, I don't want to know that. 17.
Yeah.
Don't want to know any of that. So he did, after about 20 years, I think last year, he was like, I'm coming over for a birthday. It's my mate's birthday in Horwich and Bolton, because he lives in Spain now. So I'm flying over. Do you want to meet for a beer? I'm like, and I ran into the lounge. I said, darling, he texted me what I wanted him to say, like, you know, let's go for a beer. And I was buzzing about it. And I said, yeah, cool, right, let's maybe we'll meet at King's Cross, because you can maybe get the train down. I could meet you in London, and there's loads of places to go. It's a great area. And I was like, great, I'm actually going to go for a beer with my dad. Like, this is all I've ever wanted. And then I get this text from my dad going, hello, son, I've only got dust in my pockets right now. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it down to London, but I'll still be going to my mate's birthday. And I just went, oh, cheers.
Yeah.
So he could still go to his mate's birthday.
Yeah.
But I just didn't need to know it. And every time I talk to him, it's like, you know, it's mentioning, oh, I've been carrying he used to own a pub, and the last time I spoke to him was when I got engaged. And I thought, here we go. Because I don't want any of that, like, his dad coming to the wedding. I'll ring him and say, Dad, I just got engaged. He's like, all right, congratulations, son, kind of thing. I was like, whoa, your voice sounds weird because I've not heard it for so long. And then I said, how are you? Are you well? Are you, you know, that's all I really want to know. He said, yeah, I'm all right. You know, my back's gone because I've been carrying barrels up and down this. He owned a pub. So I've been carrying barrels up and down this pub, up and down the stairs. And, you know, they're 500 quid a barrel. I know it's not much to you. And I was just like, mate, it's not the way to communicate with me.
Yeah.
You don't know me anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's what kind of, when I was trying to make our relationship closer, those moments made it more distant.
Sure.
You know, I think it's really easy, right, particularly from the outside, for us to sit here and think, oh, it must be a weakness that you can't pick up the phone to your dad and try and repair some of the things that are going on, or try and have a conversation that you need to have. But I think the more that you talk, the more it's clear that it's actually a strength, that you know what protects you and looks after you.
Yeah.
And there is also a moment in life where the answer doesn't necessarily lie in going back to where the root of the problem was.
Yeah.
And actually the answer lies elsewhere. And I think the fact that you're searching for that is really brilliant, and hopefully you'll find it. And there is a real power in relying on other people to fill the void. And just because someone like Barry McGuigan is not your dad, and just because you met him on a reality show, and just because you spent time in the jungle with him, doesn't mean that he can't provide something that you need in your life. And actually, I had a message earlier from someone. I'll play this to you quickly.
Morning, Jake, and morning, Danny. It's such a privilege to be able to say something about Danny Jones and my time in the jungle with him. And the first time I met him was when he jumped out of that helicopter and done a beeline for me. What a superb young man he is. Such an optimistic kid. Always looks on the bright side of life. Always thinks of things in a positive way. He's so amazingly talented. Great voice, great personality. And all of these things have been developed through hard work. And it's interesting that he's on the High Performance podcast, because that's what he is. He's a high performer. He's been a great success his whole life, but he constantly works at it. And he is a fabulous human being. And I'm delighted to be able to call him my friend. Have a good one.
God,
The
what
clone
a
at Cyclone.
legend! Do you know what? But he's just a diamond, an absolute diamond. And to realise, like, we've only obviously spent 24 days together intensely. And to come out with a relationship like that, and I feel like I can call him. It's 2 a.m. I just call Bazzus, mate, I've got a problem.
And why is it, like, what does he, like, what are the qualities that you see in him that obviously resonate so deeply?
Do you know what? I don't actually know. I just gravitated to him when I saw him because I love boxing. I knew Barry was on the show. I was like, mate, let's do it, you know. So I grabbed him as my partner to start with, and I think it was that fatherly figure. Like, I wanted that. Do you know what? I didn't know what I wanted, but I just gravitated to him, and I think that he, someone looking out for me, patting your back when, you know, it's that. Because I've had best mates that have done that, but I think that having that gap missing in my life with, you know, no father figure, I think he was my father figure. And I do gravitate, I get on with, like, those father figures.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more of a way of talking to them that they understand because they've got the life experience and they've got advice from me, because I love getting advice from people. I love getting that energy and, like, what would you do? Because straight away I was asking him, what would you say to me? You know, I've got a 6-year-old kid. You've been through all this. You've lost your daughter. What do you say to me now? And he's like, mate, no job is worth the money than time with your kid.
Yeah.
Time with your kid is absolutely precious. And I'm practicing that right now. Like, you know, just even the mornings and the evenings, I put my phone away and I just spend it with him. And we, you know, he might be bowling on the Nintendo Switch or whatever, but I'm just watching him because he wants me to watch him. I'm not in the background just going, yeah. And I'm trying my best. I still have those moments where I am on my phone and I'll be like, yeah, just 1 second, mate. But I'm aware of it now. And, you know, having Barry just have my back and give me those advice, like pieces of advice. It's just, I just gravitate to that.
I saw a great quote once that said, if you don't listen to your kids when they come to you with small things, then they will never come to you when it's the big things. And what you'll realize in years to come is that for them, even the small things were the big things.
Absolutely.
I think it's such a brilliant,
massive
line. And I suppose it leads me to look at the year you've just had, which on any level is incredibly successful, right? You should be so proud of what's happened this year.
Thank you.
But that must come at a cost. And I wonder what those costs are.
Yeah. So I had this plan of like, let's just bosh it until I'm 40. Like we all, you know, anyone who's successful, like the reason we're successful is because we work hard and we get obsessed with what we do. And I think over the years, it's managing time on my, what I find pride in, time on my profession. You know, you can't have everything. I saw this diagram recently. It's this triangular diagram of like, you know, family and relationships, health and profession. And you can never have all three booming. You know, something's got to take a back seat. You can have a balance between all of them, but I can't be like, you know, bodybuilder, playing a show and have the best family relationship. You can't do it all. So, you know, something has to compromise. But what has compromised over the years is time with friends, time with my son, time with my wife. That does, it's not that it takes a back seat, it's just we never find time to do it. And I think that's what makes me happy as well. And I've just got to remember that. And I remember Alan Tyrone, should I say. He did an amazing analogy. And I don't know if it was made the edit, but he said, he's like, the way I look at my life is, it's like I'm spinning plates. And I've got three. I've got family, I've got my career, and I've got, I think he said something like golf. And he said, I'm just slowly spinning them all. I'm not going woo, 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 and then forgetting about the other one. I'm just slowly spinning them all so they don't fall off. But yeah, compromise with friends and family. And again, another thing that Barry's taught me is that time's the only thing we run out of, and you have to go and experience life. And Revo as well. He gave me this sense of adventure for doing things. Yeah. There's a huge world out there that's ready to be explored. And, you know, there's this thing, I get home and I'm just comfortable. I'm like, I just want to stay home. Whereas actually, sometimes you just got to get out there and do things. And
so if I asked you now, after all the amazing things that we've talked about over the last hour or so, and the experiences you've had and the challenges you've had and the things you've been through, if I said to you, what is high performance? What do you believe it to be?
I think that's changed over the years for me. I thought high performance was going... Here's the thing. I think high performance is a big window.
Yeah.
I think when you're young and you have less responsibilities, you can afford to go all in. Yeah, all in and give it your all and do something that you love because you're less likely to give that up. I think you create your own luck by being all in. I think luck is a part of it. For me, it's been luck because if I hadn't have been there at that time, that might have not happened. You can create that environment. But I think later on in life, high performance for me is about balance. Balance of health, balance of happiness, balance of mind. So then I can perform at a high level. Because once that is all happy and that is solid, I can go out there and perform to everybody and I can give the best version of me. There's no point me coming on here and, okay, I might say I need to talk about some stuff, but I'm in a great place and I can go out there and not to say that musicians that are not in a good place can't go out there and perform on a high level, because there's clearly, you know, amazing performers that can do that. But I think high performance for me is about balance.
Yeah.
And having the best version of me, which is balance, happiness, and balancing the mind. I think that's it. I think that's it for me.
And have you got comfy with the fact that you're enough as well? Because the only thing I think about when I look at your year and I look at your life, I'm like, he's always looking for new projects. He's always busy. He's always on shows where people have to vote for him, right? He's runner-up in MasterChef. He wins The Voice. He wins Masked Singer. He wins I'm a Celebrity. you know you don't need people to vote for you to tell you that you're great.
Thanks, mate. Do you know what was without getting too emotional now? There was a moment after the show, and I went in to check in with the, I think they call them therapists or the kind of welfare team, and it was in this little hut, and we walked out the jungle. I'd just been crowned king. I was on an absolute high, had the crown on still, I'm stinking, and I went in this little hut and I got weighed. I was 70 kilos, came out at 70. So I lost 6 kilos. And I went into the welfare kind of tent area bit. And she said, "How are you?" And it was just me and the therapist. I was like, I think well, I'm on top of the world, but I think I'm all right. And I hadn't really connected with anybody on the outside world by this point. And she asked me this question. She was like, "How do you feel after the shows, how do you feel being, voted and that?" And I was like, and I tried to digest it in the best possible way. I was like, normally I'm protected by my vocals and my guitar and my band. And McFly, I've won the Brit Award. Great. But I'm diluted in that because there's 4 of us. On The Voice, you're voting for the singer, But I've just been on a show where someone's voted for me. But not just me when I'm hungry, when I'm tired, when I'm covered in stuff that I don't want to be covered in. It's the worst of me. And she just said to me, "So do you feel enough?" And I just burst out into tears. It's like, oh my God, maybe I am. And for that, that was one moment where I was like, whoa, I have never felt that emotion. I've never asked that to myself or been asked that. So for me, that was one of the most rewarding moments I think I've ever had in my life, because I think I am.
Do you?
Yeah.
There's a lovely line you used earlier where a lot of your success was almost like a certificate of validation that you're doing well. And yet it seems that when you've spoke to us here, whether it's the Wild campaign, whether it's the relationship with Barry, or whether it's that moment afterwards, it's about the private moments, the relationships, the stuff that the world doesn't have to see, that brings the best reward for you.
Yeah, it does. I mean, what's interesting is, don't get me wrong, we are self-conscious. High performers, I think, are self-conscious, because what I've learned about myself is my bar is set so high that if I do a gig now, it needs to be A star. If I do one thing wrong, it used to beat me up, and it still will to this day. But I've got to learn that's enough. You are enough. That's enough. That's okay. We're human. We make mistakes. When I got selected for Soccer Aid, I'm like, right, I need to sign for a semi-pro team. I'm going to be Ronaldo. I'm expecting to be Ronaldo. I'm going to get a hat trick. I'm like, Danny, lower your expectations, please. And I had this thing that had to be this amazing version of myself everywhere I went. And I think what I've learned over the years is that you on that day, however you feel, is enough. That's fine, But I think we do feel the pressure. I do like pressure. Sometimes it does get overwhelming. Like my mum says, pressure makes diamonds. And I do get that, and I love pressure, and I thrive under pressure. For example, we can have 4 weeks of rehearsal. I will learn everything in the last 5 days. I've got sheets of lyrics in front of me for 3-4 weeks, and the last 5 days it all goes in. Brilliant. And I'm just, I love pressure. But I don't know what the point was there, but I think that it's what I've learned is that I don't need to have my bar set so high. It's been good over the years to have that bar set high, but it doesn't need to be every day, every hour, every minute of my life.
And how important is it for you to share these kinds of conversations? I know you've got an official partnership with Calm, right?
Yes, which is brand new, recent, days old. So I'm buzzing about that. And I've done stuff with Calm before, and I've had friends that have not been mentally well, and it's scary, the percent of suicide and stuff like that. So I really want to I feel a privilege actually to be involved in it. And I never knew the impact of just me talking about my struggles. And I always thought my struggles were like, pfft. But actually, even though they might not be as bad as yours, they're actually worthy of being spoken about. And I think that's what we've got to learn. And I've been around so many friends of mine that will go, mate, you don't want to know, how are you anyway? How are you? No, tell me yours, because they need to be out there. And I think that, yeah, it's a pretty cool thing that I can be involved with Calm now, because I didn't realize the impact of me just talking about what I've been through has, and how many people relate to it, and how many people are going through that right now. And I feel that, you know, it makes the world that little less lonely, you know?
I love that. And this conversation will also help so many people. Have you enjoyed it?
Loved it, man.
That was a quick hour.
Yeah, it was. There's so much more.
I know. We will do part two. Before we finish, though, how about some quick fire questions?
Yes, go on, yeah.
The 3 non-negotiable behaviours that you think are most important in this world.
I think number 1 for me is kindness.
Brilliant.
I think looking back on my career and everything I've learned, I think kind of 2 answers here: repetition and consistency. For me, that's massive, because, for example, I put in every day in my diary, gym, walk, gym, something. 1, it reminds me, and 2, it makes it non-negotiable. It's in my diary. Oh, I have to do it. So that's, for me, that is consistency and repetition. And again, by lowering, I don't have to go in there and be Arnie. Yeah. Just go in there, do some stretching, go in there, do something else. Just go in there every day. For me, that is massive. And consistency then stops me from feeling the anxiety, because the first thing I did when I felt anxious when I was 18 was I lowered my partying lifestyle and I got healthier. I have a balance of it now, but that was one thing. If I have my body in good state, then everything else might build from that. So it was a building block for me. And then I would say there was a saying I heard, and I loved it, and it allowed me to lower my bar. It was just be 1%, just go for 1% a day. Just 1% better a day. Yeah. It doesn't have to be 100. And I love that. Just 1% better.
So we have a high performance app, which is sort of the home for all of our content, videos, and there's a brilliant feature on there called habit reminders, so that you can set, a bit like you putting gym in your diary every day. There's a habit reminder feature you can set. So every day the app will send you a notification of
nice.
The habit you want to be reminded about. What is the one daily habit that you've incorporated into your own life that's made a big difference?
There's a few. I think one of them's sleep. I normally wear a whoop, but I've lost it in the house move. I got into mouth taping. It's been massive for me. 2 reasons.
What's that?
So I tape my mouth at night.
At night, yeah.
2 reasons.
Because you talk too much.
Because I talk too much, yeah. I tape my mouth because it was actually Tom Jones that told me to do it a couple of years ago. When I'm in hotels and there's air conditioning, I did it for my voice.
Right, okay.
But then there's obviously other factors. Yeah. You know, it's your filter through your nose, the way you breathe, everything slows down. You stay in a deeper sleep. You stay in more REM sleep. It helps your jawline, all of these things. And I was like, get me some mouth tape. So yeah, I've started doing that and I sleep better. I don't wake up at night. I feel more refreshed in the morning. I try and get some sort of daylight. I mean, it's hard nowadays, but sleep for me is massive. Just trying to get my 8 hours in because I can function. And there's other things like working out and stuff is massive for me because I feel like priority for me is sleep and exercise. Once I've done something, whether it's a walk, whether it's even I started doing reformer athletic Pilates, something. So when I come home, I'm more patient with my kid. I'm a better husband. I'm better in everyday life because I've got all the right chemicals going around, you know, they've been released. Because I'm terrible in the morning. I'm a night owl, so I've always got to fight that. Right. I want to stay up and write music and I come alive at night. And that's good in a studio atmosphere. But I think for me now, it's about good sleep and just some movement. And then, you know, at the weekends, you know, I can go mad. I live by this 80-20 as well. 80% good, 20% bad. I need to have some bad.
So what's the bad?
So yeah, Monday to Friday afternoon, it's like good diet. And then you can enjoy yourself at the weekends. And that's balance. That's my balance. That's my balance. Balance is key, guys.
What's your biggest strength and your greatest weakness?
Greatest weakness is right now not understanding some emotions, because that doesn't allow me to communicate. Like I said before, I wish I could communicate that better. And I'm trying to, that's what I'm going to go and talk about next, is like, I wish, say I get this thing of like I had a mind blank earlier. I get that a lot with, if I'm feeling emotional, I don't know how to say, explain what I'm feeling. It was very similar to why I got into production. I couldn't explain what I was trying to, the sound I was trying to get, because it was an emotion. So I'm trying to understand so I can go, actually, this is what I mean. My greatest strength, I think, is just my personality. And I just, you know, try and find the good in everything rather than the bad. And I love people's energy, and I get charged off other people's energy.
I love that. What a great thing to say. My strength is my personality. You're the first person that's ever said that in over 300 episodes.
Is it really?
Yeah, but I think it's brilliant.
Nice.
Imagine if we could all be in a place where we go, the thing that's strongest in my life is my personality, because that's who you are. That's great. Final question.
My laugh. I'm not laughing much here, though.
Your one golden rule to live in a high-performance life.
I can only relate to how I've lived my life, and I always live my life with something good is always around the corner. Success is literally through that door, and I feel like I've seen so many people have this long battle with trying to be successful, and all they need to do is just open that door and give it one more go, because it's just behind that wall, and they give up at that point. So just keep thinking that this is how it's meant to be. It's not meant to be easy. If something's hard, it means it's right. That's how I think.
Yep.
So yeah, just always think that something good is always around the corner. It will happen for you.
Listen, I love your optimism, and
You have to be.
well, I think you do, particularly with some of the things you've been through. Like, optimism is the thing that makes you have hope, and without hope, we're all lost. So,
Absolutely. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, of course,
that I do? For me personally, visualization is massive.
Go on, say more.
So, okay, here's the fourth. For this year, my 21st anniversary, so any gig I do, I visualize it. I go through the set list, and it's what keeps me up at night, but it's what is, for me, I think, is one of my strengths. I visualize it. I come up with scenarios. I'm like, what if that happened? Oh, I've not prepared for that. And it helps me prepare, because I make up this mini movie in my head. For The Masked Singer, I made up a mini movie in my head. I visualized it, and I'm going, what if this happened? What if that? Oh, I've got to do a Celine Dion song, because that'd go crazy. I bet no one's thought about doing more female-based songs. It helps me make these decisions.
Right.
For The Voice, I go, oh, what if that, we need to sing like this? What if we had a pitch like that? What if Tom wrote a musical? Oh, and I visualize it because it helps me prepare. I put myself in that situation. For I'm a Celeb, it was more negative. It's like, oh my God, like, what's it going to be like? Because I didn't know what it was going to be like. It wasn't my strength. But all I thought is just be yourself all the time. Don't be scared to be yourself. And I made these mini movies up in my head. And for me, that helps me prepare for that moment.
Brilliant.
And sometimes I've gone, this has happened before. And it's happened the way it happened in my head.
And when do you do it? Like, do you find a specific time or place to create these mental movies?
It's normally just that moment where I'm sleepy on the sofa. We've all had it, right? There's some point in our brain that goes, I'm watching the footy or whatever, I'm falling asleep, I need to go to bed. From going off that sofa upstairs, my brain comes alive.
Right.
And that's when I start going. And I'm laying in bed and I'm just going, oh yeah, and I start making these mini movies up. And that's the time. Like literally half an hour before I go to bed.
Danny, I must have known you for the best part of 20 years. That was the most powerful conversation. I'm so glad we've had it. Thank you so much, man.
Mate, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a privilege to come on, honestly.
Thank you.
Buzzing.
This episode is brought to you by Payhawk, a company we think are great partners for high growth and scaling companies. Have you been in a world of wasting countless hours on expense reports or playing spend approval ping pong? Well, those days are long gone, thanks to Payhawk. No more receipt chasing or drowning finance teams in paperwork. You can now focus on what truly matters, which is growing your business. And what is Payhawk's brilliance? Well, they help companies create what they call a healthy spend culture, so their customers don't stress about how much they can spend, where or when, because it's all pre-agreed. Talk about a weight off their shoulders. So if you're curious to see Payhawk's magic in action, their company cards app and spend management platform could revolutionize your business. Visit the link in the description to book a demo, and don't forget to mention you heard about them on the High Performance Podcast. And of course, huge thanks to Payhawk for supporting our show. Here's to smarter spending and time back in all our pockets.